Some prisoners were killed instantly. Others got hurt. We were all trying to get out.
When war breaks out, whether it's prisoners of war or convicts, first, they must be evacuated to a safe place.
In the conflict sparked by the military coup in Myanmar, civilian casualties have sadly become all too common. But several thousand prisoners were trapped in the crossfire during the battle for Lashio. Hello and welcome to Doh Athan, a weekly podcast about human rights stories from Myanmar. It's brought to you by Fondation Hirondelle. This episode is produced by Shwe Phee Myay journalist Mai Rupa. Names and voices may have been changed to protect contributors. Doh Myat was an inmate in Lashio prison in July when the Three Brotherhood Alliance launched an offensive to capture it. The 30-year-old had been arrested in June 2023 and charged with supporting the resistance.
After a big fight broke out on the 27th, the next morning on the 28th, they opened our cell doors so we can go shower. It had been 3 or 4 days since we last had the chance. While we were out, 2 heavy weapons hit around 8 a.m. that morning, and smoke and dust filled the whole prison. The wardens rushed all of us back inside, locked the doors, and that was probably the last we saw of them.
Just think about that for a minute. A battle breaks out around a prison, and the wardens react by locking all of the prisoners in. Prisoners, whatever crimes they may have committed, are civilians. Lawyer U Tu told Doh Athan that all prisoners should be protected under international humanitarian law, and even according to the Myanmar Jail Manual.
Myanmar also has its own jail manual. According to the manual, if there is an unexpected danger, whether it is war or natural disaster, prisoners should be released. That's in the existing law. It seems the military did not comply with it.
Doh Myat says he then saw the wardens run to the military barracks behind the jail. Soon after, he says the military started firing mortars at the jail, apparently thinking that resistance forces were already inside. But again, think about this. They knew that prisoners, trapped civilians, would be hit as well. Doh Myat says there were 30 or 40 mortars, some of which hit his dorm room. He saw fellow prisoners die right in front of him.
The reason I could tell the attacks were coming from the military was because the mortars had labels that said, manufactured by 80, Mama Ka Sa Pa. One of them hit the room with a generator, set it on fire, and the fire spread quickly to our dorm. By then, everyone inside was shouting and panicking. Some prisoners were killed instantly. Others got hurt. We were all trying to get out.
In the women's block, Mai Rupa and her cellmates were also trying to get out. The 35-year-old used to be a teacher, but after the military coup, she joined an ethnic armed group in northern Shan state. She later became a commander before she was arrested at a toll gate in March 2023. On July 28th this year, like Doh Myat, she and her cellmates were locked in by officers after the attack started. But she had no intention of sitting around waiting to be rescued or hit by artillery.
The door to our dorm room was wooden, not iron bars. They locked us in with 2 locks. I kicked the door hard and the first padlock broke. When it fell, the lock loosened a bit. I managed to slip my hand in to unlock it. Someone else came to help, and the 2 of us finally got the door open. Everyone rushed out after that.
There were reported to be about 2,700 prisoners in the jail at the time of the offensive, around 200 of them political prisoners. Those who could flee did so, But dozens of people were reported to have been killed either in the mortar attacks on the prison or in the crossfire while escaping.
We escaped the prison, but we couldn't run on the main road because there was a battle going on, with both sides using heavy and small weapons. So we jumped over the brick fence and ran towards the compound in front of the prison. There were attacks happening the whole time we were running.
Doh Myat tells a similar story.
We finally managed to escape through the door, just barely avoiding being burned alive inside. But when we got to the prison entrance, the attacks kept coming. Some prisoners were shot by soldiers from the tower, and I saw friends and people I knew die right there from the heavy weapons being fired from behind the prison. We all ran towards the city, but as we ran, we were shot by machine guns. So we hid in nearby houses and eventually crossed fields to get further away. That's when we met the Alliance forces, who brought us to safety.
But could all of these civilian deaths have been avoided in the first place? Could both sides have negotiated? Lawyer U Tu says the prisoners should have been moved to safe zones.
Prisons are not military targets, but during conflicts, there are occasions when the SAC and revolutionary forces open fire. Sometimes there might not be an opportunity to rescue prisoners immediately, and there might be intentional shooting. But regardless of what they say, these actions are not legally permitted. When war breaks out, whether it's prisoners of war or convicts, first, they must be evacuated to a safe place.
The battle for Lashio prison was only part of the wider operation led by the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, or MNDAA, to capture Lashio town. After a month of fighting, their success was a historic victory for the resistance, since the military's regional command was based there. The MNDAA is now governing the town and the prison. But in the chaos around the capture of the prison, it seems that not everyone has been accounted for. Some people are still missing. Doh Athan is still not sure what's happened to her 18-year-old son. He'd been arrested with 3 friends at a checkpoint a month beforehand. They were arrested just because junta soldiers found an audio recording on one of their phones of a conversation with a Palang soldier. Initially, they were placed in Lashio police station, and no case was opened yet. But when the battle for Lashio started, they were sent to the prison. Doh Athan says his 3 friends have already returned to the village.
I haven't heard from him. I don't know if he's alive or dead. His friends say he got shot in the head while they were escaping. I even asked astrologers, and they say he's not dead yet, that he's been detained somewhere. I'm so worried since there's no news.
In this situation, who can she ask for information? What happened to other prisoners? And who can be held responsible for the civilian deaths? The MNDAA did not reply to requests from Doh Athan and have stated that they're not speaking to any media. According to those close to MNDAA, political prisoners were all released and some other prisoners were released on bail. But those convicted of serious crimes like rape, murder and human trafficking remained detained. News reports suggested that the Ta'ang National Liberation Army, or TNLA, and the United Wa State Army collected escaped prisoners from their ethnic groups. Lue U, spokesperson for the TNLA, said that 130 Ta'ang people who escaped from Lashio prison were transferred to them.
We screened the transfer prisoners. After contacting their families, we released the political prisoners. But we're still detaining those who committed other crimes and criminal offenses.
She declined to give the exact location, but said the prisoners are being held in territory they control. She said they now have separate detention facilities for prisoners of war and other offenders. But what do these armed groups know about running civilian prisons? And what capacity do they have? There have been several jailbreaks reported from Lashio prison in recent months, prompting suggestions that security is not what it once was. Some of the political prisoners who escaped in July are reported to be helping in recovery efforts in Lashio, in health, education and administration. Mai Rupa has gone back to teaching.
As I'm a teacher, I'm helping with Lashio's recovery through education work. I really want this conflict to end across the whole country. I hope families that were separated can reunite soon.
But for Doh Athan, she just wants to know if her son is alive or dead, so she can make a religious donation to make merit for him.
I want to make a donation if he's already dead. But I don't know if he's alive or not, so I don't know what to do. I wish the authorities would tell me something. I just want him to come back alive and safely.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Doh Athan. We'd welcome your feedback on social media, and please follow or subscribe to our pages. This project on human rights reporting is supported by Fondation Hirondelle with the help of our donors. You can listen to our podcasts via the Doh Athan Facebook page. They can also be found on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify and Telegram. You can also listen every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. and Sunday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. on Voice of America Radio. Please tune in again next week.